The rusted gates of the midnight carnival did not just stand there. They hummed. Via pressed her palm against the cold, flaking iron and pulled it back instantly. A low, synthetic vibration thrummed through the metal, traveling up her arm and settling deep in her teeth. Beside her, Lemon, Nya, and Ava stood motionless, their eyes fixed on the path beyond the archway. The park was vast, a sprawling skeleton of steel and shadow, yet it was unnervingly quiet. No wind stirred the dead leaves caught in the turnstiles. No distant hum of machinery broke the stillness. It was a silence that felt heavy. They had signed on as night guards, expecting the mundane routine. But the air here tasted of ozone and stagnant dust. Nya took a step forward, her boot crunching sharply on the gravel, the sound echoing unnaturally far. The vibration in the gate intensified. Via gripped her flashlight, clicked it on, and pushed the heavy gate inward. It swung open with a long, agonizing groan. They moved in pairs, the flashlight beams cutting through the thick, stagnant air. The park was a labyrinth of rusted tracks and frozen rides, but the silence was deceptive. Every few minutes, a faint, rhythmic clicking sound echoed from the shadows, though nothing moved. Via and Nia took the main thoroughfare, while Lemon and Ava circled the perimeter. Hours passed in the oppressive dark. Near the main stage, a figure appeared, hunched over a mountain of refuse. It was Sanai. She was straining against the weight of a massive, overflowing bag, her knuckles white as she dragged it across the cracked asphalt. It was filled with jagged plastic shards and twisted metal wrappers. The group converged on her, dropping their gear to assist. As they hauled the bag toward the disposal chute, the debris rattled with a metallic, almost organic resonance. Sanai did not look up, her breathing ragged and frantic. She muttered about the mess never ending, about how the park kept shedding its skin. Via noticed a trail of dark, viscous fluid leaking from the bag, staining the ground. It did not look like trash. It looked like something that had been alive. The center stage was dominated by a towering animatronic, its frame locked in a frozen mid-performance pose. Its eyes were dark, but a faint, rhythmic hum emanated from its chest cavity. Via stepped onto the platform. She reached into the exposed panel in the machine's torso, her fingers brushing past tangled wires and rusted gears. She expected cold metal. Instead, she felt a surge of heat, intense and localized. Her hand struck something solid. As she pulled the wires aside, a soft, bioluminescent glow bled through the gaps, illuminating her face in a harsh blue. It was a core battery, but it throbbed like a living muscle, casting long, shivering shadows across the stage. Sanai stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with genuine shock. She whispered that she had never seen this. Lemon leaned in, his brow furrowed. They were no longer just guards. They were witnesses to a machine that was breathing. Lemon did not wait for an explanation. He pulled a portable interface from his pack and jammed the connector into the animatronic's primary port. The screen flickered, displaying lines of corrupted code that refused to resolve. He tapped the keys with aggressive precision, bypassing the local safety protocols. The system fought back, the animatronic's joints twitching in sudden, violent spasms. Then, the screen cleared. A single file path appeared. Project Soul. Lemon executed the command, and the screen flooded with architectural schematics. They followed the digital trail to a concealed iron door behind the carousel. The lock clicked open with a metallic groan. They descended a narrow, spiral staircase into the earth. The air grew cold, smelling of sterile chemicals. At the bottom, they stepped into a sprawling industrial laboratory. Rows of glass tubes stretched into the darkness, each filled with a viscous, glowing fluid. Inside every tube, a faint, human-like shape drifted, tethered by glowing wires. Lemon pulled up the data logs. The batteries were harvested from the missing. The group stood in the dim blue light, the weight of the discovery settling into the silence. They were no longer looking at a park. They were looking at a tomb. The silence in the lab was absolute. broken only by the low, electrical hum of the glass tubes. Via stepped toward the main conduit, her hand tracing the thick, glowing cables that snaked up from the floor and vanished into the ceiling. She followed the lines with her eyes, realizing they were not just powering the machines. They were draining the very life force of the trapped. Lemon tapped the console, mapping the energy flow. The display showed a web of light stretching across the entire park, all feeding into a single central hub. But the hub was protected by 4 heavy, ancient safety locks. The system logs indicated that only 4 physical keys could disengage the mechanism. The group exchanged a look of grim determination. They had to move fast before the system detected the breach. They split up, moving toward the exits. Nya and Ava took the north path toward the funhouse. Via and Lemon headed for the ticket booth and the Ferris wheel engine. The plan was set. They turned and sprinted toward the surface, the weight of the mission pressing against their chests. Every second counted now. Nya and Ava burst into the funhouse, the air thick with the smell of ozone and rotting wood. The floor tilted at a sharp angle, forcing them to scramble for balance. Mirrors lined every wall, reflecting their movements in distorted, endless loops. Nya stopped, her eyes darting across the glass. She saw a flicker of gold behind a cracked panel in the corner. She lunged, fingers hooking into the hidden compartment, and pulled out the first ancient key. It felt cold and heavy, vibrating with a faint, rhythmic pulse. They did not pause. They sprinted out into the dark park, heading toward the roller coaster control room. The ground beneath them began to shudder, a low-frequency rumble that rattled their teeth. They reached the control room door, Naya kicking it open with a metallic crash. Inside, the console was a mess of tangled wires and flickering lights. Ava scanned the room, her gaze locking onto a small pedestal beneath the main lever. The second key sat there, glowing with a soft, sickly light. She grabbed it just as the entire building groaned, the metal walls bowing inward under the pressure. They ducked under a falling support beam, the sound of grinding gears filling the air. They were 2 keys closer, but the park was waking up. Via and Lemon sprinted into the plaza, their lungs burning, just as Nia and Ava emerged from the shadows of the Ferris wheel. They were all there. 4 keys, 4 tired faces, and the central hub looming in the dark. The ground buckled beneath them, a sudden tremor throwing Lemon against the stone base of the nearest pillar. He scrambled up, clutching the ticket booth key. The air screamed with static. They did not speak. They moved. Each of them lunged toward one of the 4 stone pillars that guarded the power hub. Via jammed her key into the slot, the metal biting into the stone. Nya, Ava, and Lemon followed suit, twisting the keys in perfect unison. A deep, resonant groan echoed from beneath the plaza as the stone pillars began to rotate. The grinding of ancient gears vibrated through the soles of their boots. The ground beneath the hub cracked, dust and debris spraying into the air as the mechanism locked into its final position. The plaza floor tilted, the entire park shuddering under the weight of the shifting energy. They stepped back, hands raised to shield their faces from the rising grit. The pillars were set. The hub was exposed. The final sequence had begun. The 4 stone pillars ignited. Brilliant, concentrated beams of white light erupted from their summits, tearing through the heavy night air. They arched inward, converging with violent precision upon the central power hub. The core shrieked. It was a high-pitched, metallic whine that vibrated in their marrow, forcing them to clap hands over their ears. The plaza floor buckled, sending cracks, spiderwebbing outward from the pillars. Via, Lemon, Nya, and Ava dropped to their knees, bracing against the sudden, crushing pressure of the discharge. The light intensified, turning the entire park into a blinding, featureless void. Then, the core shattered. A shockwave of pure, kinetic force blasted outward, flattening the surrounding debris and throwing the group backward. The whine reached a deafening crescendo, then vanished instantly. Silence slammed back into the park, heavy and absolute. Above the plaza, The air shimmered with thousands of faint, translucent flickers rising toward the stars. The trap was broken. The souls were free. The sun crested the horizon, washing the park in a steady golden light. The heavy, metallic scent of the night had vanished, replaced by the smell of fresh grass and morning dew. Where the rusted, jagged gates once stood, bright banners fluttered in the breeze, welcoming visitors to a space that felt entirely new. Via, Lemon, Nya, and Ava walked the perimeter one last time. The animatronics were silent, lifeless shells, their internal components now cold and inert. They watched as the first families arrived, their laughter echoing across the plaza where the power hub had once groaned. Children ran toward the carousel, clutching colorful balloons that bobbed against the clear blue sky. The park was no longer a place of secrets or trapped energy. It was a vibrant, open sanctuary. Sanai stood at the main entrance, her hand resting firmly on the frame of the new gate. She held the deed to the property. The darkness had been scrubbed away, replaced by the simple, steady movement of people enjoying a day of play. She folded the document and tucked it away, her focus shifting to the horizon. The work was finished. The park belonged to the sunlight now.